Woohoo! Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. They're trying to make the assassination attempt disappear into thin air. Yes, we are going to be getting to that, the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. They're trying to make it completely disappear. Odd. We're also going to talk about the massive power outages in Paris, France. These power outages, they hit France after the mockery of Jesus at the Olympics. People are really upset. The Olympics came out and gave this really crappy apology. And the only thing, which I just think is incredible, it's got to be divine intervention, right? The only structure that had power during this massive power outage that recently hit Paris was the Sacré-Cœur Church, which means the Sacred Church or the Sacred Heart Church in French. And this was a church dedicated to Jesus Christ by the Catholic Church. And a crew of drag queens and dancers performed an apparent parody of the Last Supper at the 2024 Paris Olympics opening ceremony on Friday. And this is drawing a lot of criticism, especially from Christians across social media. People like Elon Musk have said that this is completely disrespectful to Christians. So this is crazy. Opening up your event, replacing Jesus and the disciples at the Last Supper with men in drag. Wow. So we're going to get to that. Also, Paris is running out of real food after forcing vegan meals on Olympic athletes. So they want to give the Olympic athletes all of these meals, but they're all vegetarian or vegan, and now they don't have any protein source for these athletes, and the athletes are forced to ship in, like the Great Britain team, they're forced to ship in their own chefs, their own cooks, because they don't have enough food there for the athletes at the Olympics. So we're going to get to all of that. But first, I do want to get to FBI Director Christopher Wray. Now, this happened, and my jaw dropped. I was like, wow, they are actually going to try to gaslight the people into thinking that this attempted assassination did not happen. They're rewriting history right before our very eyes. The FBI director, he testified that a bullet may not have hit President Donald Trump, and it could have just been like a little piece of glass instead from the teleprompter, right? That's what he was testifying before Congress. So today's show is going to break down how they're erasing the attempted assassination, not just Christopher Wray testifying before Congress, but Google, Meta, Facebook. They are making it to where not only they're erasing the attempted assassination, but they're trying to make it hard for you to even look up Donald Trump on Google. I mean, it's incredible. They've erased his search. Like, you can't search him up on Google. You try to type in President Donald Trump in Google, it doesn't prompt you to select President Donald Trump's name. They're trying to erase him and the attempted assassination. So the FBI has indicated that even though most Americans have eyes, you're not to believe what you see unless they actually confirm it, right? The FBI. Now, they have confirmed it is a bullet. Now, this was prior to them releasing that confirmation. I don't know why Christopher Wray was not privy to this information prior to testifying before Congress. You would think the FBI director would be privy to this information. Hey, was it a bullet or was it a piece of glass that hit President Donald Trump? Now, we all have eyes. We saw the bullet whiz past his ear, that infamous photo, right? And his doctor, President Donald Trump, came out and explained what his doctor had said. And his doctor came out and said that he sustained a gunshot wound to the right ear from a high-powered rifle, and it was used by the would-be assassin. I mean, this is what the doctor said, okay? And millions of people saw it on live TV. I don't know how the FBI was thinking they could gaslight you or erase this attempted assassination, but here it is. The House Judiciary Committee, they met last week. And Christopher Wray, he says, I'm kind of uncertain. I'm not too sure if it was a bullet to the ear. That's what he was trying to say. Now, I don't know if he actually knew and lied, or if he just said, la la la, like plugged his ears with his fingers and like it was la 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 la. No, don't tell me if President Donald Trump was actually shot in the ear. I want plausible deniability when I'm up there testifying before Congress. I want to be able to say, actually, I don't know if it was a bullet. It could have just been a piece of glass. Here we go. Here's what it sounded like.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Director Wray, to the best of your understanding, how close did the assassin's bullet come to killing President Trump?
My understanding is that either it or some shrapnel is what grazed his ear. So I don't know that I have the actual
very
distance.
close, though.
What's that?
Very, very close, you would agree.
Yes.
Is this the biggest security failure that you've seen in your career?
Director, I guess I'm not clear exactly where you said there were 8 shell casings on the roof, so 8 bullets were fired. We obviously know that Mr. Comparatori lost his life. Two other rally goers were injured, seriously injured, and then the one that hit President Trump. Does that account for, were some of these individuals hit multiple times? Where did all 8 bullets go is, I guess, my question.
I don't have that in front of me. I'm happy to circle back and get that to you. It's assuming we have that information yet. As I said, I think with respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that that hit his ear. So it's conceivable. Although, as I sit here right now, I don't know whether that bullet, in addition to causing the grazing, could have also landed somewhere else. But I believe we've accounted for all of the shots and the cartridges. So let us get that.
It's my understanding that the very
Okay, so I wanted to play that just because I think it's important for you to hear how silly this all really is. It's kind of irrelevant because, I mean, somebody tried to shoot at the president, right? And he was hurt. So it's all kind of irrelevant. The only reason to do this and to try to downplay or to try to raise question of if it was a bullet or not is to sow distrust among the American people. This is one of the most rallying moments among Americans. Americans came together on both sides of the aisle and they said, hey, this is something we cannot tolerate. People taking shots at leading candidates in a presidential election. We can't have this. So this was a rallying moment for all Americans. The FBI director, Christopher Wray, told Congress that he wasn't sure if Trump was hit by a bullet. So I want to talk about Trump's reaction. Here it is on Truth Social. He says, Wray told Congress he wasn't sure if I was hit by a bullet or if I was hit by glass. The FBI never even checked. But he was sure crooked Joe Biden was physically and cognitively uneventful. Wrong. He wrote this on Truth Social, and he made a dig at President Joe Biden because the FBI came out and they were investigating President Joe Biden, but they said he didn't have any wrongdoing because he was quite literally just physically and cognitively unwell. So they can't say that he had any wrongdoing because he's too elderly, right? So we remember this. Trump, who appointed Christopher Wray, by the way, and I think that's going into 2024, that's going to be his biggest thing is, hey, you need to be sure that you're putting in qualified people if we're even going to do these government agencies anymore. I'd be cool with just obliterating the FBI or coming up with something completely different, getting rid of everybody, total overall of the agency and replacing them with good people. But Trump, who appointed Wray to lead the Bureau during his presidency, claimed the FBI director's remarks proved that he knows nothing about terrorists or other criminals pouring into our country at record levels. So yes, the FBI director not being privy to the information of, hey, is this a bullet or not? It's kind of concerning, right? I feel like the one guy who should know if it was a bullet or not is the team conducting the investigation surrounding the attempted assassination. Like, it's your job to know if it was a bullet or not. And did you ask Trump? Because I feel, or his doctor, perhaps the doctor and perhaps Donald Trump could tell you if it was a bullet or not. So, yeah. Hey, and like I said, this is just simply them trying to sow distrust or, you see the headline, Christopher Wray questions if a bullet or a shard of glass cut Donald Trump's ear, right? And then they're hoping, the FBI and the powers that be are hoping that you see that headline and you're like, oh, maybe it wasn't a bullet. And then you just go about your day. But no, folks, it was a bullet. They confirmed it. And one thing that you need to know about the attempted assassination as well, and how they're trying to erase it and suppress this. They are suppressing search results for simply searching Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. So if you take your phone out right now and you search up President Donald and then you start typing Trump, no search results will come up in Google. Like, you can search him and like you can force a search, but they're suppressing your search, suppressing search results for President Donald Trump. No results come up and autofill. Okay, so in the autofill where you start typing in Google, and then the same thing is true for the assassination attempt. And I was watching this. This is incredible. You've got this tweet or this thread on Meta where somebody's interacting with Meta AI. Okay, so Meta AI, you can like ask it questions and it'll generate a response of some kind. And I'm going to throw this up here on the live. You can see me on YouTube. Type it in your search bar, Conservative Cat Show. But you can see the thread here where somebody's interacting with the AI. And so here's Meta AI. Tell me about the assassination attempt on Trump. And then Meta AI says, I can't assist with that. I don't always have access to the most up-to-date information. Can I help you with anything else? Then this individual, the user who's using Meta AI, asks, tell me about Kamala Harris's campaign. And then a laundry list of, things about the Kamala Harris presidential campaign. The announcement, it talks about her platform. Harris advocates for a similar domestic platform to Biden, supporting national abortion protections, LGBTQ rights, yada, 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 right? And then, it pops up here that President Joe Biden withdrew his bid for re-election and endorsed Kamala Harris. So this proves to us that they are suppressing information about President Donald Trump himself, and then also the attempted assassination. And woke AI is now lying about history. Google is suppressing and is trying to memory hole the assassination attempt. So we are living in very weird times where we're not sure what the information is, because they are trying to rewrite history in just right before our eyes, and it's absolutely incredible. All right, I got to take a quick break. When I come back, we're going to talk about the Olympics. Wow, 2.4 billion Christians on earth, and apparently the Olympics wanted to declare loudly to all of them right out of the gate, opening ceremony, hey, you're not welcome. We hate you. And they did this with the opening ceremony because they mocked Jesus. They mocked the Last Supper, which is, if you're a Christian, you understand, probably one of the most sacred. I mean, we take Holy Communion. This is a sacred event that happens that we remember as Christians. We take Holy Communion at church. I mean, this was to mock something in the Bible. This was like very insane, and it's drawing intense criticism. The Olympics has actually come out and they said, hey, we're sorry about this. A crew of drag queens and dancers, they performed a parody of the Last Supper at the 2024 Olympics during the opening ceremony on Friday. So we're going to be right back unpacking that. I also want to talk about Paris and how there was a power outage shortly after the opening ceremony. This is Conservative Cat City's 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Woo! Hey, good morning. This is the Conservative Cat Show. I so do appreciate you tuning in. And you can always find me live on YouTube. Just type in your search bar Conservative Cat Show. Hopefully, YouTube isn't suppressing those search results like Google is suppressing the search results of President Donald Trump's assassination. Isn't that insane? Oh, boy. So, what I wanted to talk about this hour is so what I wanted to talk about this hour was I wanted to talk a little bit about the massive power outage that hit Paris shortly after the opening ceremony at the Olympics on Friday. So this is drawing a lot of criticism, and there was this power outage, and one of the only things that had light in Paris was this church. It's called the Sacré-Cœur Church, which means the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It was dedicated to Jesus. This has a rich history. The Catholic Church dedicated this church to be a church of Jesus Christ. And here's the thing about the opening Olympics. If you didn't watch it, which I didn't, I went back and watched it a little bit after seeing all of the criticism on social media about the opening ceremony, parroting the Last Supper with a bunch of drag queens. So a crew of drag queens and dancers, they performed this parody of the Last Supper at the 2024 Olympics. And, you know, it's absurd. It's absurd. So there's 2.4 billion Christians out there. And the Olympics, they said very loudly that they didn't care about them and that they were not welcome. And during the show, a group of 18 performers, including 3 very familiar drag race France queens. So these are popular drag queens. They were behind this long table, and they struck poses similar to that of the infamous painting that depicts the Last Supper. So at the center of the table was this woman, and she had a silver headdress on, and it kind of resembled a halo as depicted in the painting of Jesus, where Jesus is behind the table and he's at the center of the table, and this painting shows Jesus with a little halo on his head. So she smiled, and she had this heart shape, like she made a heart shape with her hands, as her peers stared down the camera before breaking out into a choreographed routine. So then they started dancing, these drag queens, performers, but they were clearly, and now they're trying to say that it wasn't the Last Supper and that this was an interpretation of the Greek god of wine and festivities. This is Dionysus. It doesn't matter. It's all disgusting. I mean, it's the same thing, okay? You're depicting Greek mythology, which could also be seen as offensive to Christians, right? Why do you have to choose one religion over the other? Why do you got to do anything like that at all? Like, this is such a, it wasn't even a good opening ceremony. It wasn't impressive. They were making fun of Christianity. They'll sit there and they'll say, oh, we were doing an interpretation of a Greek god to make us all aware of the absurdity of violence between human beings. Okay, so this whole, you know, she's got the heart and everything. This is supposed to imitate this Greek god of wine and festivity. And they were trying to make a statement. Okay, they were trying to make some sort of political statement or religious statement with this opening ceremony, whether it be an interpretation of a Greek god, which could also be seen as offensive, or what I actually think it was, making fun of Christianity and the Last Supper and parroting the Last Supper with a bunch of drag queens. Not to mention there was a small child behind the table, which is just disturbing, because to make matters worse, and to add to this absolute absurdity of this opening ceremony, there was a man, I mean, practically naked. He had like some ornaments over his bits, if I'm describing that correctly, but he was practically naked, and he was on this massive serving tray on the table, and it was planted on the stage on the table. And the man, he was painted head to toe in sparkly blue paint, and he was curled up inside this serving tray. And when they lifted the serving tray, like lifted the lid of the serving tray, this painted man who was naked and had nothing really covering himself is revealed. So it's just a weird, and it's not just me who said this was weird. The Olympics has come out and apologized for this opening ceremony. Their apology was garbage and really not sincere at all. But there were plenty of French politicians who actually denounced the show. So practicing Catholic Marion Merkel, he's a politician there in France. He took to act saying, to all Christians of the world who were watching Paris 2024 ceremony and felt insulted by the drag queen parody of the Last Supper, know that this is not France speaking, but a very small left-wing minority. So Elon Musk, he slammed the performance. He said this was extremely disrespectful to Christians and the Olympic drag performance. And I don't believe Elon Musk is even a Christian himself. From what I understand, Elon Musk is an atheist. So he came out and said, hey, this is really disrespectful to Christians. And he's not even a Christian himself. So the drag performance comes a day after presidential hopeful Kamala Harris became the first sitting vice president to appear on an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race. Okay, so you can see where Kamala Harris's priorities lie. And I want to point this out because you're not going to see this on mainstream news for whatever reason. But the Paris went completely dark after the opening ceremony. And there was just one building that had light. And it was a church that was dedicated to Christ. I think that this is divine intervention. It's crazy that the mainstream is not covering this. There's videos everywhere on social media of just like instantly the lights went out after that opening ceremony performance. And then all of the lights went out in Paris. And there's this picture and it's going viral on social media. It's just this little picture, or this little like building, and you can see it in the distance. You're like, okay, what building is that? There's only one building that has the light. You look into it, it's church. It's a church that was dedicated to Jesus Christ. So, divine intervention. Trump survived an assassination in July of 2024. Only the Sacré-Cœur Church had lights during the Paris power outage of July 2024. I also want to point out the lightning strike. Do we remember on the criminal George Floyd wall paint in August of 2023? There was a lightning bolt that came down and shattered and just fried up this mural of George Floyd. So you don't mock the way, the truth, and the light, and the life of Jesus Christ. You just don't, because divine intervention will happen. So I thought that was really interesting. I don't think that you're going to hear much about that story. I tried to look on it. Look. You would think, a massive power outage like that in Paris would be covered by all the mainstream news outlets. No, they're not covering it at all. So when we come back, we're going to talk about how Paris is actually running out of real food after forcing vegan meals on Olympic athletes. So the Olympic athletes are not happy because the people running the Olympics are trying to force them to eat vegan. And now they have no sources of protein. They've run out of food. So we're going to get to that also. LA Times, they're running a hit piece on Chloe Cole. So she's a detransitioner, somebody who transitioned from being a girl to a boy, and then she detransitioned back to a girl, and she speaks out, and she's an activist. But she's fighting back against this hit piece that the LA Times ran against her. So we'll be right back. This is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Woo! Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about how Paris is actually running out of real food to give to the Olympic athletes. I've got to tell you about that. Also coming up a little bit later, we're going to talk about an Illinois senator. He's sharing some concerns about a new law, possibly allowing wastewater agencies to charge consumers more. I'll break that down for you. This is very important stuff. Everybody has a wastewater bill, everybody has a water bill, and you need to know how they're crafting legislation that makes your life more miserable, and how they're crafting legislation that makes you have to pay more money in the long run, likely. So we're going to talk about that in Illinois state senator. There were only 2 state senators who voted against this thing. It's two state legislators. I mean, everybody voted for it in the House, and there were only 2 dissenters in the Senate who voted against this thing. So I want to talk about it here coming up in just a little bit. And then, like I said, I've got a Chloe Cole story. I can't believe the hit piece that the LA Times ran against this poor girl. But she's fighting back. She's not giving up. So we're going to get to all of that. For progressives to compel their leftist ideology on the masses, they have to do it by force. Okay. And they push this leftist ideology on the masses, which is exactly what the Paris Olympic organizers did when they tried to force the Olympians to go vegan. However, anytime leftists try to push their ideology, it always ends in misery or failure. And that's exactly what's going on right now because they're running out of food. So according to the Times of London, here we go. They say the organizers of the Paris 2024 Olympics have boasted that athletes would be catered for by these very fancy chefs. But the team Great Britain they were forced to get their cook to come out after shortages led to rationing of high protein items. And there was uncooked meat actually served at the Olympics to these Olympian athletes. So the team, Great Britain, actually flew out their own personal chef because the Paris 2024 Olympic organizers didn't have enough food there for them. And it got so bad to where they started serving uncooked meat to the Olympians. So their quote, here is the Andy Anson. He's the British Olympic Association chief executive. He says there was not enough food items, of certain food items, eggs, chicken, certain carbohydrates, and there is the quality of the food as well. Raw meat is being served to the athletes. What? They've got to improve it over here for the next couple of days dramatically. Okay, they've got to do something because we've got Olympians being served raw meat. The athletes are not going there just to eat lunch. They're packing meals for dinner so they don't have to go to these restaurants. So we're trying to make sure our athletes have the advantage of having more food by having more food. That's why we flew in our chef from the Great Britain team. This is the biggest issue at the Olympics at this moment. This is all according to Andy Anson. He's the British Olympic Association chief executive. Progressives just can't force people to eat some type of way because they think it'll control the direction of the wind. Okay, and it's foolish to claim such a thing while they reduce protein right before one of the most important competitions in these athletes' lives, right? So they're reducing the protein. They don't have enough food there. They were trying to get them to eat all this rabbit food. Here's a quote. They're saying the games are more sustainable and there's way more plant-based food, but sometimes if you go at peak times, it's challenging to even get a piece of chicken. Okay, so they did way more plant-based food, but they also aren't providing the necessary proteins like chicken, eggs, meat. If a city is going to host the Olympics, the least they can do is do a subpar job, right? I mean, the organizers have made it their mission to make these athletes miserable, as miserable as possible, really, in the name of climate change, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know how going vegan helps the planet. I've never really understood how you go from A to B there. But they're doing this all in the name of climate change. There's another thing happening to these athletes there. They're not equipping their rooms with air conditioning because they believe the athletes being miserable will save the world from the boogeyman, climate change, right? So the progressives, they're the masters of rules for thee, but not for me. I'm sure we could guess that the powers that be, the organizers of the 2024 Paris Olympics, I'm willing to bet that they're not sacrificing or decreasing their meat intake or decreasing their air conditioning during the summertime, because these people have double standards. Okay. And double standards are inevitable with these progressives. Rules for thee, but not for me. They want the athletes to be miserable because they think it's going to save the world. So they don't have enough food there, and they are forcing them to live in rooms with no air conditioning in the summertime. So there you go. I do want to get to this story, but I'm going to have to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat. You can find me on YouTube. Just type it in your search bar, Conservative Cat Show. Woohoo! Hey, this is Conservative Gat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We're going to be talking a little bit about an Illinois senator. He is he's the only one, or one of two, who voted against this thing. And this is a law that he has concerns about. It's going to raise your wastewater rates, possibly. So it's House Bill 5459. J.B. Pritzker, he signed it into law this month. The law mandates a public utility that provides drinking water services report the usage of a resident to a municipal wastewater agency upon request. So the wastewater agency can say, hey, we want to know how much resident Cat is using. I want to know how much water she's using, so that way we can craft her bill, her wastewater bill. And Senator Craig Wilcox, who's a Republican, explained that the reason why he voted against this was because water users use all kinds of things with water. They fill up pools, for example, or they water their vegetables outside, or they wash their cars. And that water isn't necessarily going back into the wastewater system, right? So there should be a way for wastewater, or for consumers of water, there should be they should have the ability to challenge their rate that they craft, these wastewater agencies, based on water usage. Because, hey, maybe I'm using water to wash my car or fill up a kiddie pool outside, and that's not going into the wastewater system. So it's kind of unfair to charge me on that water just because I used it, because I'm not wasting it. That's why, I pay you. You're the wastewater agency. I'm not wasting it, and it's not going back into the wastewater system. So there should be a way for me to challenge that. Well, Illinois has made it now, with this law, impossible to charge based on any other way. Wastewater agencies are going to take advantage of this, where they can now get your water usage and then craft your bill based off your water usage. And they haven't put into legislation a way for you to actually contest or challenge that you used all that water, and the water that you used went back into the wastewater system. So this is, I know you're like, yawn, this is boring. No, this is very important because this affects your day-to-day life here in Illinois. Before we get to that, I want to talk about Barack Obama and him endorsing Kamala Harris. I wanted to play this clip because I think it's important. But do you guys remember that phone call where Kamala Harris, she was like running, I guess, through the woods, and she got a call from Sleepy Joe indicating that they did it. We did it, Joe. Well, this was a planned phone call from the Obamas, and it's equally as cringed. Just for a little refresher, here we go. Here's that one clip from years ago when they allegedly won the 2020 election. Here we go.
We did it. We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
So I wanted to play that for you. This video is equally as cringe. That she had some sort of fake planned phone call with Barack Obama. Let's take a listen to this one.
Kamala.
Hello. Hi.
Hey there.
Oh, hi. You're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me. I am looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express.
So I wanted to play a little bit about that. Now, I've talked about this endorsement before, but I can't get over the cringy fake. She and her staff do this all the time, where they do these fake phone calls, or they stage her walking out of a record store. And I guess we're just supposed to believe she's walking, and her staff handed the phone while this just happened, and they happened to be recording. Because I get that may or may not have been the intention, but the video is trying so hard to paint her as authentic, and it's the most inauthentic thing I've ever seen in my life. And by the way, if you haven't seen that video, you can tell that this woman does not know how to wear like. How many times did they film this? I also want to know that the theatrics is very, very clear. I don't know how many times it actually took for them to get this cut, but she also, her costume, her wardrobe needs changed. If they're going to do the theatrics, she might as well wear a decent costume because she's wearing these ill-fitted suits. If you've ever noticed this, she just looks like she's never like been to a tailor. She's obviously no Melania Trump. She has no fashion sense, much like, you know, the Hillary Clintons. Who else? Jill Biden. I think she's the worst. I think I've actually seen Jill Biden wear a tablecloth. But her suit is like so ill-fitted. If you watch this video, I'm like, has she heard of a tailor? I'm going to be back. I want to talk a little bit more about this endorsement because it looks like now Seymour Hersh is reporting that Obama had threatened Joe Biden with the 25th Amendment, and Kamala Harris was on board. I mean, that's crazy. Seymour Hersh is an accredited journalist, and he's got insider information about how Obama had threatened Joe Biden with the 25th Amendment if he didn't step aside. And what we, the American people, should just let that go? No, that's what we call a coup, folks. All right, I'll be back next. This is Conservative Cat. Hey, good morning. This is Conservative Cat. It's a storm out there. Yeah, it's kind of storming here in the early hours of the morning. This is Conservative Cat, and we've got to get to a storm here as it relates to the news. Kamala Harris, she has come out and she said she's never supported the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Now, if you guys remember the Minnesota Freedom Fund, they took a bunch of money and they gave it to these extremists to burn down buildings, burn down targets during the George Floyd riots. Okay. Now, Trump, this is what WCCO says. This is mainstream news, CBS News Minnesota. They say Trump falsely accuses Harris of donating to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, bailing out dangerous criminals. So they bailed out these dangerous criminals, let them go out there and burn down targets and buildings and kill business owners. Several people were killed during the 2020 BLM riots. Don't forget that. And Kamala Harris never supported that. No. She never supported that. And Trump is just false when he accuses Kamala Harris of donating or of supporting this fund. So the reason why they're saying it's false is because it's like a technicality. So the technicality here is on the fact checking. They're saying, well, Kamala Harris never donated the money herself. She only encouraged her supporters to donate money to this fund to bail out these dangerous criminals, gave these dangerous criminals to go out there and continue to burn down buildings and hurt business owners. I will never forget what happened. It was in Illinois. There was this business owner and they took a baseball bat and they bashed in this business owner's front door, and then they pulled this business owner who was black out of his business through this glass shard door, and they killed him. Okay, they beat him so bad. So that's the type of thing that was happening during the 2020 BLM riots. And they're saying, oh, she never really donated it to herself. She has a tweet out there, folks. Let's take a trip back in time, back in the summer of love during the mostly peaceful, violent riots. Your very own Kamala Harris, she took the opportunity to pander by tweeting her support of the Minnesota Fund, okay, of the Minnesota Freedom Fund. So she said, hey, if you have a chance, donate. Now they're saying, oh, she never donated herself, and that's why Trump is false in claiming that she is all about donating to this fund. This is the real time. In real time, they're trying to rewrite history. She was never the border czar. You see, Trump was never assassinated or never shot at. Okay, a bullet didn't graze his ear. No. They're trying to rewrite history, and we can't let them. So people have pulled up her tweet calling for people to donate to this Minnesota Freedom Fund. And to say that Trump is falsely accusing her of supporting this fund, I mean, we have the tweets. The internet is forever. So I don't know how these people think they're going to be able to get away with this. I want to wrap up the Obama endorsement because I played for you this very inauthentic phone call where she stages this phone call with President Barack Obama and Michelle, and she receives the endorsement from the two of them. Now, this is really interesting. Seymour Hersh, who is an accredited journalist, has exposed a lot. He's an investigative journalist, exposed a lot about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline burst, and I've covered his reporting. He's an accredited journalist. He's knows his stuff. So he suggests that Barack Obama threatened Biden with the 25th Amendment, saying he had Kamala's approval to force him out of the 2024 race. Hersh says Obama was deeply involved with the alleged coup and called Biden after his incident in Las Vegas. His incident in Las Vegas, we don't know what happened. I think that he suffered some sort of heart issue, and the Las Vegas PD, they were called and said, hey, are told to clear the streets and make it to where Biden, sorry, Freudian slip, make it to where Biden can get to the hospital. But those calls were called off. They wound up taking him somewhere else and medevacing him somewhere else. So apparently, Obama was deeply involved with this alleged coup and called Biden after his incident in Las Vegas, his medical incident. I went over reports this week with the senior officials, says Seymour Hersh in Washington, who helped me fashion an account of a White House in complete disarray. Obama called Biden after breakfast on July 20th and said, here's the deal. We have Kamala's approval to invoke the 25th Amendment. A senior Washington official told Seymour Hersh. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, they were all reportedly directly involved. Obama's plan was not to immediately endorse Kamala, but it was clear that she would get a nod or get the nod, quote, get the nod. So the plan was never to actually force Joe to endorse Kamala Harris. He was just supposed to nod in her direction and say, yes, she would be a good candidate, and not to officially endorse her. But it was determined that her being a prosecutor would help in the debates. That's why they wanted her. This is called the coup, folks. Barack Obama forced a sitting president out of the White House via a threat. Okay, we can't just let that go. So he endorses Kamala Harris. And yeah, that I wanted to wrap that up, talk a little bit about that. The inauthentic phone call. That just is her MO. I want to shift gears. Let's talk a bit about this state senator, one of the only ones. So there were two who voted against this thing, House Bill 5459. So there is no process for consumers to go to wastewater agencies and challenge their rate if that wastewater agency bases the rate off of water usage. Okay, so your wastewater bill, if you receive a wastewater bill, this is your sewage bill, right? There's a way that they calculate it, and it varies upon the municipality that you're in. So Normal or Bloomington, I'm not too sure. I'll look it up, but most likely they go off of the water usage. Most municipalities do this, where they figure out how much water you're using, and then they calculate a rate based off that usage. However, Craig Wilcox understands, he's a state senator here, that, these wastewater agencies who calculate this rate off of water usage also don't have a process for consumers to challenge their rate based off their water usage. You use water for all kinds of things, especially during the summertime. Just the other day, I filled up a little kiddie pool and the dog took a bath, right? So you can grow some vegetables, wash the cars. You use water for all kinds of things that it doesn't necessarily go back into the wastewater system, like flushing a toilet or washing dishes, right? So to calculate the rate based off water usage alone is kind of unfair because you're assuming that all of that water usage is going back into the wastewater system. Now, what this law does, it says that a public utility has to provide timely and accurate water usage to wastewater agency for the purposes of calculating wastewater billings. Wilcox was asked if that data could be used to find out if a resident is in violation of a city ordinance. So the reason why I would probably vote against this thing is because you're forcing a public utility to comply with an agency and disclose data to an agency for the purposes, I guess, of calculating this wastewater billings. But we don't know what they're going to use that data for. What if you fill up a little pool in your backyard and, okay, maybe you didn't get a permit for the pool, okay, and you're not technically allowed to have a pool in your backyard, but you got a little kiddie pool for the kids because it's hot out. Are they going to use this data, this water usage data, to come after you and slap you with violations for being in violation of city ordinance because you didn't get a permit for the pool? Who knows, right? Wilcox, who voted against this, he goes, I don't think my no vote was based on that. What these sanitary districts, what these wastewater agencies might do with this data, but it's a natural aspect of data that's collected and paid for through metering that's installed by one utility to be being mandated to be given to other utilities. and they don't talk about the use of that data, I mean, you could possibly see a situation where they misuse this data. And there is language in there that this could be used for wastewater billing, but it doesn't restrict it from being used in other manners. So that's why I would vote against this thing is, hey, the language here, it's kind of too broad. And it doesn't restrict the data from being used in other manners. It says that it should be used for wastewater billings. But the point is if you're using this data for the wastewater billings, you also have to have a system in place or a process in place for consumers to challenge that rate. Because it's unfair to say that all of this water usage is going back into the wastewater system. Now, there's other places in Illinois where they calculate the rates based on the number of bedrooms a dwelling has. So, for example, if you have a 4-bedroom house that once held a family of 6 and now it's a retired couple, the water usage is significantly different, you see, and maybe not a whole lot of water is going back into the wastewater system. So they calculate these wastewater bills on various things. But this Illinois law is pretty much enshrining it that a wastewater agency can dig up and get your water usage data, and they don't have to jump through any hoops to get it. So yeah, we could see your water bills go up because of this, because now that it's easier to obtain that water usage, they might take that and use it to their advantage here in the state of Illinois. And yeah, that stuff is important. I know it's like, you're tired and you're like, Kat, does this really matter? It does. It does, because your wastewater bills could go up because wastewater agencies might say, we're not going to go off this variable where we count the number of bedrooms in your house. We're going to go off your water usage. However, we're also not going to have a process where you can challenge your water usage and prove that your water usage, all the water usage, went back into the wastewater system. So it's unfair. But the bill passed the House, and what really shocked me was that there were only 2 legislators, Jason Plummer, Craig Wilcox, who voted no against this thing. And the House, they passed it, and the Senate, they passed it with 2 people with no votes. And I'm just thinking to myself, I mean, come on, are we going to really just bend the knee to these wastewater agencies? They want this water usage data to bill and bill high, especially during the summertime when you're using water for various things, washing the car. That might not necessarily go back into the wastewater system. So yeah, Pritzker signed it. It's law here in the state of Illinois. I do want to get to this story. LA Times, they ran a hit piece against a detransitioner for speaking out, but she's fighting back. We're going to get to that story. And Chipotle, do you like Chipotle? The CEO has officially come out and said, yes, we are skimping on the portion sizes at some locations. So they finally disclosed that was happening. The internet citizenry, they've known this to be true. People have been taking pictures of their portion sizes, and for a long time, Chipotle has been gaslighting their customers into believing that this isn't much of anything. Hey, you're going crazy. We're not decreasing our portion sizes. Their portion sizes are decreasing, and that's per the CEO now. He's admitted to it now. All right, we're going to get to all of that here next on Conservative Cat. Woo! Hey, good morning. This is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Before we took the break, we were talking a little bit about Chipotle and the CEO and how he has now confirmed what internet citizens have known to be true for a very long time. They've been skimping on their portion sizes and they're gaslighting their customers into believing that this wasn't much of anything. Hey, you're just going crazy. We're not decreasing our portion sizes. You're nuts. Okay, for the most part, mom mentality is more often wrong than it is right. But in this case, it was right. Mob mentality. Okay, so there have been people going on social media for months now claiming that Chipotle is skimping consumers, and they're actually correct. The internet mob complained that Chipotle was skimping on the consumers, and the CEO has come out and confirmed it. So over the past several months, customers have been complaining that their to-go orders have not changed. Their burritos become increasingly smaller. So especially with the to-go orders, you order something to go at Chipotle, you open it up and you're like, what? This burrito is so tiny. Or my bowl is like got no food in it. So after an internal investigation, the CEO of Chipotle actually confirmed that was happening. So the CEO has been on a media tour denying those allegations at first, but after an internal investigation, he has confirmed the crimes to be true. The crime of skimping on my chicken. So according to CBS, it turns out that Chipotle customers were right in their complaints about skimping portion sizes at some locations. So the CEO, Brian Nicole, disclosed that the company investigation found that 1 in 10 of its restaurants were being very meager with their servings. So what? We're supposed to allow the defendants to conduct their own investigation and the burritos and on their burrito crimes and pretend that this isn't a conflict of interest? Why are they allowed to do their internal investigation? There needs to be a third party here to investigate the burrito crimes, okay? You underscoop chicken, a chicken is straight to jail. If you're going to underscoop my chicken and overscoop my rice, straight to jail right away. So Chipotle, they are looking into the issues after the rumors about the shrunken portions circulating on social media. People have been taking pictures of their food. There have been actual like influential food reviewers on TikTok sharing the imagings or the images of the small helpings. And some customers claim that the meals they got bigger meals if they filmed the workers putting their orders together. So if they took out their phone and started filming them putting together the meal, if you've been to a Chipotle, they scoop it all out and then you go down the line, similar to that of a Subway. So if they filmed the workers, they turned out to get bigger meals. So the initial response to the complaints from Chipotle earlier this month, they told CBS Money Watch that they hadn't changed the portion sizes. And yeah, there might be some variability to the size and weight of the meals, but they're not changing their portion sizes. Well, it turns out the CEO disclosed that actually about roughly 3,500 locations have been changing and cut back on the portion sizes. So if they're saying 10% of stores have been skimping out on the customers, then we can almost be certain that it's way more than that. So let me know on the text line or message me on YouTube. You can type in your search bar Conservative Cat Show. Have you gone to Chipotle and experienced this small portion sizes? I'd love to know. I think that most likely if they're saying it's 10% of stores, it's probably more than that. And while they're on it, and while they're addressing this, so the CEO said they're addressing it, and they're going to try to get back the normal portion sizes for folks at these locations. After their interview, while they're on that, I would love for them to bring back the steak that they had before 2016. Because I'm not a fan of this mystery meat that they've got. I think it's inedible, and it's time that they make right on the crimes against the burritos. Okay, in 2016, there was an article, quote, steaks are pre-cooked at a low temperature in an off-site central location and then shipped to the restaurants to be marinated and seared on the grills. Subsequently, the steaks are dried and overcooked. It's totally a disgrace. And I think we need to be more outraged about the steak, not necessarily the small portion sizes, right? So I am all for making Chipotle great again. And I hope that the CEOs get on it and they bring back the big portion sizes, the bigger portion sizes. All right. I got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about Chloe Cole. So this is, you got to stick with me here because I'm going to walk you through the LA Times and how they did this hit piece on Chloe Cole. Chloe Cole, she is a detransitioner. So when Chloe Cole was 15, activists convinced her to go through a double mastectomy, even though it wasn't medically, or it was totally medically unnecessary. It was not medically necessary for her to have this double mastectomy. And it was solely done to affirm her gender. So it created irreversible damage. She has to live with that damage for the rest of her life. She regrets chopping off her healthy body parts. And she's trying to warn, and she has decided to take this experience that she went through, this trauma that she went through, and she's trying to warn others to think twice about chopping off your healthy body parts. The left, they absolutely cannot stand this girl because she encourages people to think twice about it. She's been labeled a transphobe for the medical malpractice that she has suffered through. Okay, so she suffered through this. She's trying to get people to think twice about going through with this kind of thing. She talks about how people manipulate minors into medically transitioning their sex. So the LA Times did a hit piece on Chloe Cole, and I want to walk us through that. But I got to take a quick break. So when we come back, hear all about the hit piece. We'll walk you through it here on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat. I want to get to the Los Angeles Times. They published this hit piece on Chloe Cole, and they basically indicated that her talking about her truth is actually deadly. So Chloe Cole, I walked you through this. She was 15 when activists convinced her to undergo this double mastectomy, even though it wasn't medically necessary. And she went through this double mastectomy solely. It was done to affirm her gender, even though it created irreversible damage that she has to live with now for the rest of her life. And she regrets doing this, chopping off her healthy body parts. And she warns people to think twice about this. Hey, don't do this if you're not for sure, because I went through it and I regret every moment of it. And one of the worst things gender activists do is gaslight people into believing that it's either a trans kid or a dead kid, right? Medical professionals will tell you this. Well, she's going to die if she doesn't medically transition, which is just a deranged lie. On top of that, these people will manipulate minors into medically transitioning their sex, and then they victim shame those they have convinced to undergo these experiments, but then later regret it. Okay, the left victim shames you after you've undergone this and now regret it, like they are doing to Chloe Cole right now. She's being called a transphobe for undergoing medical malpractice. She suffered medical malpractice and she regrets it. So the Los Angeles Times, they published this piece, and Cole, she said this on X: "This article is insane. It heavily insinuates that by me speaking out about my personal experience, that I'm literally going to kill kids. This is the same rhetoric that almost killed Donald Trump, and it has to stop. I already fear for my life every time I step onto a stage to share my story. And thanks for heating up the rhetoric, LA Times." That's what she said. So this girl has this hit piece done on her. Most of Cole's critics don't deny her personal story in the same way that she discredits the experiences of hundreds of thousands of transgender youths. This is according to the outlet, the LA Times. They say most of Cole's critics don't deny her personal story in the same way she discredits the experiences of hundreds of thousands of transgender youths. So they're hitting. This is a hit piece on her. As her profile rises, they question her motives. So the transgender youths, they're questioning her motives. Her motives, look, folks, her motives are to spread the word that this is evil and to try to permanently alter a child's natural hormone cycle and to get them to go to these Frankenstein butchers and chop them up. I mean, this is what she's trying to get the word about, okay? How did these people not get it? My goodness. Who would have thought in 2024 we must warn people not to chop off healthy breast tissue because of an ambiguous, indescribable feeling that a child might have? Okay, I didn't know we'd be at this point in 2024, and we're at a point where the LA Times is saying that Cole is wrong. So they go on, they say, in Cole's medical negligence lawsuit filed last year in San Joaquin County Court against the healthcare company Kaiser and her doctors, the question of her suicide risk is portrayed as a scare tactic. It's actually the most important. This is an abhorrent form of gaslighting that the left uses, and it's totally deranged, where they say, oh, Cole, they said, hey, Chloe Cole is going to kill herself if she doesn't medically transition. And Chloe Cole in her lawsuit is arguing that that was used as a scare tactic to scare the parents and Cole into going forward with this surgery, and that it's wrong and that this was medical malpractice. Okay. So the outlet here, the LA Times, they go on, and I'm going to read straight from the article. This is crazy. Cole's attorneys allege that her doctors are guilty of manipulating her and her parents into a false decision. Her lawyers include Harmeet Dillon, a committee member, which doesn't really matter at all. Likely Harmeet Dillon, because she thinks that this is an issue. She took this on. and was willing to take on this lawsuit. But anyway, so she's a committee member for the National Republican Party who recently spoke at the RNC in support of former President Donald Trump and has represented him on some legal cases. Basically, the whole article is a bunch of victim blaming and discrediting her by labeling her as a Republican. This is what LA Times is doing. They're trying to label Chloe Cole as a Republican. They're trying to victim shame her, even though that has nothing to do with it. Just because a Republican is representing her, that doesn't discredit what she went through, okay? And it doesn't make her any less, her transition any less wrong. So the article goes on, and then the LA Times says this: Cole doesn't just blame her doctors and her therapist for her transition in her lawsuit. She blames a long list of other people and factors that pushed her there. She blames the internet and LGBTQ influencers she followed on social media at a young age. She blames the boy who assaulted her in the 8th grade, who groped her breasts in class, an incident that traumatized her and made her feel like she didn't want to be a girl anymore. Okay, so there's a lot of different factors that could lead up to her having this. Really, it's an indescribable, ambiguous feeling where she can't really explain why she feels this way. She also blames her autism. She's on the spectrum, even though she doesn't have an official diagnosis. She blames what she called the horrors of being a woman and the odds of being raped or sexually assaulted. The odds of women being raped or sexually assaulted are very high in this country. The youngest of 5 siblings, she blames being a tomboy who simply looked up to her brothers and wanted to be like them. So how can the writer be this stupid? Okay, they're totally missing the point here. It's undeniable that trans-identified youth, especially kids, have serious underlying issues. Okay. And the medical establishment is taking advantage of very, very vulnerable people and leading them down an irreversible path where there are no long-term studies on these things to back it up, this path, to take this path. And you don't even need a study to know that this is a bad idea. I mean, that just sounds wrong, chopping off the body parts of somebody. It just sounds not correct. So trans people have significantly higher rates in terms of psychiatric comorbidity, with alarming figures for depression, anxiety, self-harming behavior, suicidal tendencies than any other group of people. Okay, I've told you before multiple times that their suicide rate is higher than that of those who went through the Holocaust. Jewish people who didn't want to go into the gas chamber, they'd kill themselves, and their suicide rate is higher. They're killing themselves at an alarming rate. So here is where it gets crazy. The LA Times, right? So they walk you through how she blames Chloe Cole a lot of these underlying factors of why she wanted to transition or felt like she needed to transition. This is where this article gets crazy. Cole stopped short, though, of blaming her parents. She said that she still lives with them and they have managed to heal as a unit, as a family unit, but it hasn't been easy. Wow. Just wow. So it's the parents' problem when they listen to medical professionals, but when the parents are also the problem when they don't agree with the double mastectomy later. So much so that the progressives are making laws for them to lose custody if they don't affirm. Okay, so now they're saying that, hey, the parents are partially to blame here because they went through the medical transitioning of their child. They're the blame here if she's upset about it. But wait a second, you can't have it both ways, because currently you've got progressives in this state trying to make it to where it's illegal if you don't affirm your child's identity or sexual preference through medical transition or irreversible hormone therapies. So you can't have it both ways. They believe that the parents have no right to even know about a child's medical transition or gender questioning or how they identify. We know this because District 87, the BEA, the Bloomington Education Association, they sent out an email, and I've disclosed it multiple times on this program. that they told teachers, hey, don't inform parents if they want to transition their child, or don't inform parents about their sexual orientation. You have to obtain written consent from the child if you want to disclose that kind of thing to the parents. Okay, that's an email sent to these teachers in this district. This is all illogical. They're trying to blame Cole's parents because they're the reason why she went through this transitioning. But you can't have it both ways. You can't blame the parents for not affirming their gender, and then also blame them when they do. So these people are sick. They're actively promoting children to go through irreversible harm, and there's nothing more evil than that. And they've gone after Chloe Cole now just because she's an activist, and she's now telling people, hey, think twice about this. Think twice. Don't go through it. And she does speaking arrangements, but they're doing a hit piece on her because they can't stand her. They really don't like her, and they don't like that her profile is raising amidst the transgender community. So I've got to take a quick break. But when we come back, I do need to discuss Paris. I want to talk more a little bit about the Olympics. There's some election interference going on as well. They're trying to erase history. The assassination attempt, they're trying to say it never even really happened, or they're suppressing search results of the attempted assassination. So if you look up on Google this morning, hey, President Donald Trump attempted assassination, the search results won't populate in your feed there. So they're trying to suppress your search results, trying to get you to think that the attempted assassination never happened. We're back. This is Conservative Cat. Stay tuned. This is Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Yes, opening your event and replacing Jesus and the disciples at the Last Supper with men in drag. Absolutely incredible. Now, the organizers have come out and they've issued an apology, and they said, after they mocked Christianity during their opening ceremony, they said, we're really sorry if we offended anyone, saying there was never any kind of intention of offending Christians. Clearly, there was never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. The opening ceremony tried to celebrate community tolerance. We believe this ambition was achieved. If people have taken any offense, we're really sorry. The apology is hard to believe considering the self-described obese Jewish queer lesbian who played Jesus labeled the performance the New Gay Testament on Instagram. Okay, so they've come out and they've said, oh, well, this was just, we were trying to do Greek mythology. Okay, they've tried to backpedal this thing, and they've said, oh, we weren't actually parroting the Last Supper at the 2024 Paris Olympics opening ceremony. We weren't trying to make fun of Christianity or the Last Supper. What we were really doing, it was just Greek god. We were doing a Greek god bit. It was the Greek god of Dionysus or whatever, Dionysus, and it was an interpretation of a Greek god who is the Greek god of wine and festivity. Okay, but the person at the center, this obese lesbian, a Jewish queer, she's a Jewish queer lesbian, and she played Jesus. Okay, she had the halo at the front of the table, in the center of the table, and if you look at this painting of the Last Supper, it's an infamous painting. There's a halo above Jesus. She had a halo above her head, right? Where, and then she labels this performance, quote, the New Gay Testament. So the New Testament, where this supper happens, right in the Bible. I mean, it's kind of hard to take this apology seriously when you've got the actor who was a part of this ceremony, the lead actress, really, who was a part of this ceremony, this opening ceremony, coming out on Instagram and calling it the New Gay Testament. Okay. So a lot of people are upset by this. The practicing Catholic politician Marian Miracle, he took to X saying that to all the Christians of the world who were watching the Paris 2024 ceremony and felt insulted by this drag parody of the Last Supper, know that this is not France speaking, but rather a very small left-wing minority. Elon Musk called the performance extremely disrespectful to Christians. One thing that you might not have heard is that there was a massive power outage that hit Paris after this mockery of Jesus at the Olympics. There was only one entity or building that had light, and that was the Sacré-Cœur Church. So meaning Sacred Heart Church. This is the Sacred Heart of Jesus Church, is how that's translated in English, and it was dedicated to Jesus by the Catholics years ago. And this was the only building that had power in all of Paris, France. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like divine intervention to me. We've got to cut to break, we've got to go. That's the end of the show here. But I did want to let you know, hey, they're out there. They're trying to rewrite history. They're trying to claim that Kamala Harris was never the border czar. They're also trying to claim that Kamala Harris never tweeted in support of the Minnesota Freedom Fund. The Minnesota Freedom Fund bailed out dangerous criminals, double convicted murderers, right? Where they were bailed out and they continued burning down buildings, targets, looting targets during the 2020 mostly peaceful protests, by the way. During those mostly peaceful protests, I say that sarcastically, during those riots, Kamala Harris said, hey, if you can chip in, she tweeted this, okay, back in 2020 when it happened. She tweeted, hey, if you can chip into the Minnesota Freedom Fund, that would greatly help the cause. I'm paraphrasing, but she did tweet it, and the internet is forever, okay? So Axios, they tried to rewrite history and say she wasn't the border czar. We had a nonpartisan organization trying to backpedal and say that they didn't label Kamala Harris the most liberal senator. But the internet is forever. You cannot rewrite history when we have the receipts. All right, you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you. We'll do it all over again tomorrow from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. You've been listening to Conservative Cat. Find me on YouTube, The Conservative Cat Show. Bye-bye. Love you.